Velete, thank you for your love and support. I appreciate you. The situation in Mali is shifting quickly.
Please bear with me. One of my eye is paining me, so manage with the voiceover. Wonders they say shall never cease to happen. A massive information war is hiding a brutal military reality in West Africa. Right now, international corporate news networks are running a highly synchronized psychological operation. They are taking real events on the ground, stripping away the facts, and spinning a narrative designed to make sovereign African nations look completely defenseless. But when you look at the raw data from the front lines, the true story is a massive shift in regional power that the West is desperate to hide. The center of this is the Alliance of Sahel States, the AES. Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso form this unified defense pact for one clear reason: to completely smash the TT insurgencies in the region and permanently end decades of foreign military dependency. Just days ago, this new alliance faced its biggest test yet near the strategic town of Anéfis in Mali. This wasn't a minor border shootout or a brief hit-and-run skirmish. This was a full-scale conventional war that raged non-stop for 5 straight days and 5 straight nights. The desert became a wall of fire. The insurgent coalition invested everything they had into this operation, deploying an estimated 5,000 heavily armed fighters and over 1,000 combat vehicles, including technical modified with heavy artillery. The front lines saw intense artillery duels, anti-aircraft canoes firing into the sky, and combat drones getting ripped out of the air. The enemy came with absolute force, intended to completely overrun the state positions and break the spine of the Malian army. But look at how the global media headlined the aftermath. French-founded network like TV5 Monde immediately flashed headlines across international screens stating that 30 Malian soldiers were unalive and 60 were wounded in the fighting. If you are just an average person watching this broadcast from a couch in Europe or America, that headline leaves you with one specific impression: the national army just got completely wiped out. It makes the state look weak, disorganized, and completely helpless against the insurgents. This is exactly how professional disinformation works. The most effective propaganda doesn't rely on making up fake stories out of thin air. Instead, it takes one single, tragic truth, isolates it from the bigger picture, and uses it to bury a massive reality. Those 30 fallen military soldiers were brave men who made the ultimate sacrifice defending their motherland, and their deaths are a real tactical loss. But the media's crime is what they deliberately choose to hide from the public. They completely erase the enemy's casualty. According to their former briefing directly from the Malian military command, the 5-day battle resulted in over 1,000 TT neutralized on the spot. Furthermore, regional security partners operating alongside the national forces, including the specialized unit of the African Corps, stated that the total enemy body count actually exceeded 2,000 fighters. The material destruction inflicted on the insurgents groups was total. State force completely obliterated 40 armed vehicles, 24 heavy weapon technicals, and more than 300 motorcycles. Think about the math of this battle. Only 30 deaths on the side of the government compared to over 1 to 2,000 deaths on the side of the invaders. This wasn't a defeat for the state. It was an absolute blowout. It was a lopsided, devastating that shattered the enemy's offensive capabilities. Yet, a state-owned foreign media outlet chooses to run a global headline focusing exclusively on the 30 soldiers while totally ignoring the thousands of decimated TT. This is deliberate psychological warfare designed to crush public morale, panic the population, and secretly support the forces trying to destabilize the nation. You can see the bias playing as they in the specific vocabulary these networks use. They refuse to call these armed groups what they actually are: criminal, bandit, and TT. Instead, they prefer to refer to them as independent Tuareg rebels or freedom fighters. This isn't a casual editing mistake. It is a conscious political decision to legitimize forces that are actively operating with international terror syndicates, including Direct, I, and GN, you understand. The media gives these TT spokespersons an uncritical global platform. They broadcast statements from insurgent leaders claiming they inflicted historic losses on the military without demanding a single piece of evidence or verification. When the TT were suddenly defeated and forced to flee Anéfis, they put out a ridiculous statement claiming they made a strategic withdrawal solely to protect the lives of local civilians. The logic is completely broken. If these armed groups actually cared about civilian casualties, they would have never launched a massive assault with thousands of fighters directly into a populated municipal center in the first place. The Malian army doesn't attack a town. They were standing inside their own base, defending their citizens from an invasion. The TT doesn't retreat out of the goodness of their hearts. They ran away because they were getting absolutely paralyzed by superior state artillery and precision drone strikes. To see why this media manipulation keeps happening, you have to follow the money. TV5 Money is not an independent group of objective journalists. It is a corporate media empire, over 63% owned and funded directly by the French government. It is a mad piece for state policy, powered by European taxpayer dollars. When a foreign government uses its public treasury to sustain a network that actively downplays the victories of an African state while framing these TT people as humanitarian retreats, it exposes an ongoing hostility towards African sovereignty. The interference goes far beyond biased news scripts. The real crisis is the direct material complicity on the ground. The conflict in the Sahel has transformed into a high-stake proxy war. Intel reports and security analysts have revealed a direct pipeline of advanced weaponry and specialized training flowing straight to these desert insurgencies from outside actors. A substantial portion of Western military funds originally earmarked for Eastern European theaters, specifically Ukraine, is being diverted into combat operations across West Africa. Ukraine military intelligence, the GUR, has been documented working directly with Tuareg separate networks in the Sahel, supplying them with advanced drone tech, tactical satellite imagery, and operational training in asymmetric warfare. The hypocrisy is stunning. Western citizens are told their taxes are going to Europe to defend international borders and sovereign states. Meanwhile, those exact same resources, pipelines, are being rerouted across the Mediterranean and handed to militias fighting alongside ICAI to overthrow sovereign African government. Foreign security insiders openly admit the goal. They want to force the state-aligned Russian auxiliary forces of the African cause to take a heavy defeat, and they don't care how many African civilians die in the process. They are using Ukrainian operatives as a convenient smokescreen to arm TT factions without facing the public backlash of doing it directly. Because these insurgent networks are losing adult fighters at a catastrophic rate under the ruthless air and ground campaigns of the AES military, they have turned to an absolute atrocity: the mass conscription of child soldiers. As national forces systematically clear TT and eliminate adult militias, the insurgent commanders have started kidnapping and forcing young teenagers and underage boys onto the front line. And we even saw some confessions coming out of these people. The first one was like 15, and then this 10 one that the father sent to the battlefield. Post-battle documentation from the Anéfis sector revealed a horrific sign. Young boys who should be in school learning science, math, and history are found dead in the sand. Despite the massive pressure of global propaganda and foreign proxy networks, the internal reality within Mali and the broader AES is one of rapid explosive growth in military self-reliance. For over 10 years, under the old security framework dominated by French military operations like Operation Barkhane and UN peacekeeping missions like MONUSMA, regional African militaries were kept intentionally weak. So what we are actually seeing is not that the military were defeated. So Western corporate medias always try to make sure they frame the situation to make us look weak because we have decided to kick them out. We heard from the Malian ministry, the front line yesterday, direct information about what happened. And he openly told us that these people came. They are not locally insurgent groups. They are people who are being trained and weaponized to come and attack them. And why they are targeting Anéfis. So why wouldn't they talk about the victory side of the Malian soldiers, yet they are concentrating much on what they are not able to do?
We are the only ones that can set ourselves free. United we stand, divided we fall, and united we keep standing forever and ever. The greatest enemy of the African is mental slavery. So let's decolonize ourselves from mental slavery. Let's keep sharing to educate our brothers and sisters. Together we'll make Africa great for ourselves and the next generations that are going to come. So that's the latest around the world in Africa, West Africa, and in Mali.